Here we are again. Hello, everybody. This is Brett Premack, aka the Jazz Video Guy. It's Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. Our special guest today is a man I'm lucky to call a friend, a very talented, remarkably creative guy named Jason Miles. We're going to see a little opening about Jason in a second that will give you a better idea of who he is and what he's done. And of course, we're going to look forward to your questions, and we're going to play some of Jason's music. Today's birthday, well, one of my favorite pianists who many people don't know about, Stanley Cowell, probably best known for his work with the Heath Brothers and one of the founders of Strata East Records. His birthday is today. And we want to send out our best wishes to a member of the jazz community, I guess you could say somewhat of a controversial guy. His name is Stanley Crouch. He started as a drummer, became a writer. He was one of the people who was originally behind Jazz at Lincoln Center. And he's written a lot of books, wrote a book about Berg. And unfortunately, Stanley has COVID-19. He's in the hospital. His condition is not critical, but he's definitely in serious shape, as with anyone who gets COVID-19. So let's send our positive energy out to Stanley. I've disagreed with Stanley many times over the years about different things musical. I remember back at the old Tower Records on 4th Street and Broadway, they had a fantastic jazz department. I would go in there and I'd look around, and I'd sometimes find Stanley in there, and Stanley would begin a discussion, and 45 minutes later I'd leave the store like with my head spinning. So get better, Stanley. Tomorrow our guest is going to be Jeff Coffin, a guy who's interestingly played with Jason. Jeff is the saxophonist with the Dave Matthews Band and has also worked with Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. A world traveler, lots of interesting things to say. On Thursday, the great Bob Mintzer will be joining us. Bob is a close friend that I've known for over 25 years. He is a teacher, a musician, who played with Jocko and Buddy Rich in his own bands and the Yellow Jackets. He now has the jazz department at USC. So he'll have some interesting things to say about jazz education. And hello, Elijah Sexton. Yeah, where are you from, Elijah? And then on Friday, Mike Casey is going to join us. And some other surprises. And next week, we'll talk about next week as we get closer to next week. But let me give you an introduction here into Jason Miles.
I think that you learn from Miles, and you learn from people like him how to lead a band, and also how to listen to music in a certain way, and how to keep your ears open is very, very important. That sometimes in the beginning it may not sound like it's right to you, but if you got to keep on listening and seeing if you find something in it. And Miles also taught me a lot about life too. That life and music and art, it does all come together.
He's very serious about the music, and that comes through in everything he does.
I consider him a genius.
Well, collaborating with Jason is really fun. What he brings to the table is a wealth of experience.
It's great because he has a big, vast knowledge of all sorts of music that translates very well for when he plays the keyboard.
Global Noise was a seed, and he created an entire project and toured, and he got all these brilliant collaborators.
He's all over the place. He grew up as a jazzer in Brooklyn, one of a good friend of Bob Berg's. But I think he really found his niche, so to speak, with electronics.
Oh, he's a great keyboard player. He knows everything he needs to know to do the music that he does.
Mike first started playing Iwi, for instance. That a lot having to do with that was finding sounds, collecting sounds, and Jason was a master of having them and finding them, giving them to Mike, altering the way they sounded in his Iwi. So he was a big part of that development too.
He likes to listen to everything. He likes to be aware of what's happening, what happened before, what's the roots for the music that he's doing.
He is so good with technology and how he has embraced and brought it to the limelight of music that was happening then when he used to work with Luther Vandross and people like that. I mean, groundbreaking ideas and vision that Jason had clearly reflects in every project he's done.
Might have been one of the first times that I talked to him. I was at my brother's loft, and Mike had lost some sequences, so he immediately called Jason, and Jay came over and kind of helped him retrieve stuff. So he was in on the cutting edge of all that stuff.
If we look at Tutu, Marcus and Miles are the major part of that album. But then again, I don't think if they hadn't had Jason Miles, we wouldn't have had the Tutu album that we got, with his programming skills and what have you. And basically enabling Miles and indeed Marcus to bring their sort of thoughts and their concepts and really make them a reality through the soundscapes that Jason programmed and produced for them.
If you're going to do something with Miles, you have to do something that like new, not only new, but that's so off the beaten path and off the other side that that nobody was ever going to understand. They would hear it in the music, but they would go, "Whoa, man, this is like crazy." And Miles realized that. And when we did Tutu, I really think that the key to it was actually Miles's performance on the song was extraordinary. Musically, what is it all about? He goes to me, it's about bringing Miles to play great melodies again.
I've grown as an artist, so I recognize that in him, that as much as he drives people crazy because he's telling you stuff over and over. It's because he cares so much, and it's not even just about the music, but he needs to let you know where he's coming from. You have to remember that the music is one expression, but as a human being, that's the most important. So a human being, he tells you as a human being who he is. And that's important, man. We got to listen to each other as artists and as human beings.
Another thing about Jason, as far as vocalist is concerned, he has so much respect for the music. And if he works with you, that means he has respect for you. He's just so accommodating, and it's never about him. When you do something that he really likes, it makes you feel like, oh my God, I just hit a home run or something.
He's totally comfortable with every player that he brings on being at the top of their game, and he has no ego in that sense. He's great at bringing together like amazing players together into one stage, and he doesn't view that as some challenge to his ability.
I toured with him, so I have been in close proximity with him for so many days, 3 weeks, 4 weeks at a time, and we had a show every day. So we used to eat together, lunch, dinner, breakfast, gigging, sound checking, going in the bus, all of that. We've spent so much time with each other. I consider him my mentor.
I found myself through listening and studying and finding out who I was, which was hard.
Well, it's not easy to find one's artistic voice, but I think Jason Miles is a guy who's doing it. Let's welcome Jason Miles. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Brett.
How you doing?
God,
Where are you located?
Man. How freaking embarrassing was that, God. What a way to start the day.
So, Jason, where are you located?
I'm located 50 miles north of New York City in Orange County, which is, on the poor side of the river. We're not in Westchester where all the fine arts meets. We are on the Woodstock side of New York, and we're about 45 minutes south of Woodstock. And we've been living here now for 27 years. 27 years. I wish it was 27 years. We've been living here now going on 29 years at this house. Yeah, well, there's the house that Luther Vandross helped us get,
Wow, that's a long time in one place. Jason, let's talk about your origins, your background, and how you got into the music. You're from Brooklyn, right?
Absolutely.
Talk to me about growing up and how you got into jazz and how you decided to be a player.
Well, the player thing was easy because I was at a wedding when I was 5 years old, and I was totally fixated on the drummer. And when the band took a break, and for some reason I split from my parents at 5, and I walked and I sat on the drummer's thing and I started banging away on the drums. People walked around going, "Yeah, look at the kid, yeah, all right." You know, I don't know what the hell I was doing, but the drummer said something to my parents like, "Get him an instrument," you know. So I said, "Yes, I want to play drums." "No, you're not playing drums. You're not playing drums. No, 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 no." "Okay, I want to play guitar." "No, you're not playing guitar. Here's an accordion." You know? Okay, so I went to accordion school, you know, and learned how to do, you know, play. But I was getting a knack for it. I mean, when I was like younger, and I played concerts when I was 10 years old on the accordion, you know. And through that whole thing, though, you have to remember you're in New York, and you know, I know people remember this, but you know, we had these quirky little shows and quirky little television stations like WOR, which had the $1 Million Movie, which they showed one movie a week, like 6 times a day for like 7 days, you know. And when you think about it now, it's like, wow, they only needed to have 52 movies to have a television station, you know. And so, you know, there were all these shows. And one day when I was young, I turned on this show called Dial M for Music. And it had the guy on it was the Jazz Priest. And it was on Sunday afternoon at 4:30, just like prime time, right? You know, we're all sitting around waiting for that in the afternoon. No, you know, it's a dead time. But I'll never forget, you know, turning it on with you and then seeing Wes Montgomery and seeing like Monk. And I don't know, I never saw Miles on there, but I mean, I didn't watch it like all the time or anything because I wasn't at home. But when I did, it was really great. And one day I was at a record store and I had gotten paid by my father the day before from working in his business. And I was in Corvettes and I went to the music department there with my $6 in my pocket saying, I'm going to buy music today. And I ended up buying Boss Guitar by Wes Montgomery in like 1964, this was.
Wow.
And I was like flipping out, man, listening to like Mel Ryan on the organ. And that's when I really decided that I want to flip. I don't want to play accordion anymore, you know. I want to flip and I want to play, you know, organ and keyboard. So I started studying piano with some different people. And, you know, eventually the Beatles changed us all, you know. And I went and, you know, started playing in local bands. I had an organ. I had a Farfisa organ that my father got. I ended up paying him back for it, of course. And we started getting work. From this band. We were good. And I played in the Catskill Mountains for 4 years. I mean, every summer, lots of holidays and weekends. And when the weekend wasn't having work, I went to the Fillmore East and the Cafe A Go-Go and listened to the music of the time and just was totally obsessed with what was going on. It was just very exciting.
Who were some of the groups that you saw at the Fillmore?
Oh, my God. Well, let's see. Jefferson Airplane, Chicago Transit Authority. I saw them. I saw their first gig in New York. I saw Mothers of Invention, Jimi Hendrix. My favorite of all time, the Butterfield Blues Band. I saw them there a bunch of times. Jethro Tull, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Sly and the Family Stone. Lots of people, man. I mean, and I'm so happy that at the end I got to take my wife there. You know, when we first went out, I got to take her there to the Fillmore. She got to see the Fillmore East. And that was great.
What jazz groups were you listening to at this time?
At that time, I was listening actually to Thelonious Monk. You know, Thelonious Monk and like Miles Smiles and you know, one of the ones where he was on the cover with Francis. I forgot which one that was. And Monk's Dream. Oh, my God, I love Monk's Dream. I was listening also to Latin music like Mongo Santa Maria. My ex-piano teacher was very famous in the Latin music scene, Larry Harlow. And I was listening to Orchestra Harlow and everything. But also, no doubt about it, I'm listening to rock music also, man. I love the Grateful Dead. I saw, you know, I saw Jeff Beck group at the Fillmore for the first appearance with Rod Stewart. And the funny thing was that Jeff told me, you know, when I met Jeff a couple of years ago, he said to me, you know, Rod Stewart never wanted to go out on stage. We had to force him out on stage. He was scared shitless, you know. I said, wow, that's unbelievable. He was amazing. You know, he goes, well, yeah, once you got him out on stage, you know.
Jason, a question from the audience. What year did you see Sly?
1968. He opened up for Jimi Hendrix, and I saw him three times. I saw him 4 times that year. I saw him at the Fillmore East opening up for Jimi Hendrix when everybody was booing. The minute they walked on stage, they were booing because they wanted Hendrix. And then Sly started playing, and the frickin' place was going nuts. I mean, people were going. They would just go. By the time the encore happened, the people just delirious. He was so great. And then I saw him at the Electric Circus, and I went to the Electric Circus, and this guy that I knew, his brother owned the Electric Circus, and we used to go there. And I was right in the front, man. Sly went on at midnight. You know, we had, met some high school chicks there. You know, I mean, it was pretty crazy. And then we saw him with Eric Burden at the Fillmore, which was great. But then also I have to say that we saw him later, and it was never the same, man. He was too far gone by then. You know, just even a couple of years later. You know.
Did you see the Allman Brothers?
I never saw the Allman Brothers. No, I was in college at that point. I was gone.
Okay, let me ask you this. It's been said that Bob Berg was around Brooklyn at that time. Did you know Bob?
Bob was my best friend. Bob was my neighbor. We lived next to each other. We knew each other since we were 2 years old. So Bob was my best friend. We used to do everything together. I mean, everything together. He was, except he wasn't Bob. He was Bobby Berg. And his mother used to make us Italian food all the time, man. She was, oh my God, what a cook she was. Wow. I could just never forget her pizza. It was just too amazing. And, I have a funny story, a funny story that I actually told at Bob's service that people were just losing it when I told the story. And, one day my mother came up to me, I think it was 1958 or something. I was 7 years old. And she said to me, because my birthday is June 30th, at the end of the school year. My mother said to me, we can do 2 things. 1, you can have a birthday party, or 2, I'll take you and 3 friends to Coney Island. And I went like, oh, Coney Island, I want to go to Coney Island. And I never forget, I ran down the block and I went to Bob's house and I said, Bobby, we're going to Coney Island, man. My mother's taking us for our birthday to Coney Island. And we were like, oh, man, we're so excited. And I'll never forget us, man. We're sitting on the Captain Video ride. It was like, ray guns and everything we were doing. It was deep, man. It was deep. Then I moved from the neighborhood and we stayed in touch and everything like that, And when I came back to New York in 1974, Kathy was in Indiana, and I went to the Bottom Line to see Larry Carlton and Horace Silver. And all of a sudden, I'm looking on the stage, and I'm going to myself, I know that guy playing saxophone. I know that guy playing saxophone, man. Come on. Because I hadn't seen Bob now in like 6 years, And, man, oh, my God, I know that guy. And all of a sudden, Horace goes, on saxophone, Bob Berg. And I went, oh, my God. I was freaking out. He sounded amazing. He sounded great. Him and Tom Harrell. So I went backstage after the show, and I looked, and I walked in, and he goes, yeah, hey, man, what's up, man? He didn't even say. I said, is your mother Annette and your father's name was Irwin? Hey, man, what is it to you, man? I said, because we're old friends, man. I'm Jason, your friend Jason from Brooklyn. He looked and he goes, holy shit, man. What are you doing, man? What are you doing here? And we hung out the rest of the night and everything like that, and we reignited our friendship. And we had a friendship all the way to the very end. And there were ups and downs. It was a typical friendship where, like, for 2 years I didn't talk to him because I was pissed off at him, Then he went to Europe and he got clean over there and he met Aria. And then he came back and he called me. Then we had another falling out because of this music he wanted to do that I didn't want to do. And then one day, about 1999, I went and I looked at an email, which I was very early in this, and it was from a guy, Must Swing. That was the handle. And I opened up and it was like, hey, man, it's Bob, man. I really miss you, man. Give me a call, please. And I gave him a call. And I acted like nothing was even, we hadn't even seen each other in like a week. You know what I mean? And I said to him, well, hey, man, it's good we connect, man. You want a gig? And he goes, doing what? Playing a solo of the song that Shaka Khan is singing on my Yvonne Lynn's album coming out. He goes, yeah, whoa, let's go. So he drives his Cadillac up to my friend's studio. And we were hanging out and everything. He played an incredible solo. And then we were talking because he was getting very bummed out that he felt he was really underappreciated. And I felt that also. But Bob wasn't a real aggressive cat. He was very seemed cold-hearted, but he was a very warm guy inside. Very, very warm. But he had to keep that Brooklyn exterior, and Bob Berg, man, And so, take no prisoners. And we were talking, and I said, Bob, I got an idea for you, man. I got an idea. I'm going to help you, man. I'm going to help you, you know. And he goes, well, what are you talking about? I go, you know, man, your problem is you're selling Bob Berg, okay? That's cool. But you also have to have like a side groove going on also, man, to keep times moving, you know, on a different level that can bring you to a different place. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, that's why we have this thing called the Masters of Modern Jazz. And that's your project, and that's your group. So you can make an album with the Masters of Modern Jazz, and your first one, say, it has like John Patitucci, Gary Novak, and Dave Kokoski, and you know you plan the stuff a year in advance, and you put together a tour and everything. And he goes, Jay, you're fucking brilliant, man. He says to me, you know, and I said, well, this is what I do, Bob. I come up with ideas, and he goes, oh man, let's talk about this. I definitely want to talk about this. And I go, no problem. 2 days later, I got a phone call from my friend Mark Wetzel saying, hey, man, are you sitting down? I'm going, yeah. He goes, look, man, I got to tell you this. I go, tell me what? He goes, Bob Berg got killed in a car accident in East Hampton, Long Island today. And I was like, what? And I was like, I was almost inconsolable, man. And Aria got thrown out of the car, and she was in the hospital. And, you know, it only stood when I saw him at the funeral. He was a very interesting character, man. When you got to know him, there was a lot of very, very great things about him, you know.
Yeah.
Miles,
I didn't know Bob that well. I once did a blindfold test with him, but I certainly saw him with Horace a bunch of times. I saw him with Chick. He was a fantastic musician.
Oh,
now, Jason, how did you get into synthesizers? When did that happen, and why?
Well, you know, I was always listening to stuff, man, you know, and I mean, what really intrigued me, first of all, was like the early sci-fi movies like Forbidden Planet. They had all these like theremin sounds and everything. And I used to listen to it, and I used to go, wow, man, that's like so weird. Then I had a Farfisa organ, and I was one of the first people to take the Farfisa organ and to put it through a Leslie tone cabinet. My cousin worked for Wurlitzer, and he knew how to do the mod. So I had that. So I was experimenting with the Farfisa through the Leslie and everything. It had a really great sound. And then what happened was that I saw, Clockwork Orange, and I heard Switched on Bach, and I was like, wow. And then then the major moment happened where I was walking past the music hall at college in 1972, and I went in for a second. I don't know why. I went in, and there was a guy on stage with a little instrument all the way from the back, and I walked up front, and I said, wow, look, that thing's so cool. What is it? He goes, it's a Moog synthesizer, and I'm Bob Moog. And I went, wow. He goes, try it. Go ahead, try it. I hit one key, and the freaking walls were shaking, man. And I went, oh, my God, that's incredible. And I said, I got to get one of these. Well, you know, they're not for sale yet. But then 6 months later, they started coming out, and I saw a couple of bands using it that just sounded amazing. It sounded amazing. And I said, this is great. And then all of a sudden, the records started coming out. And let's face it, Weather Report had a big influence on me coming. I used to listen to albums all the time. That's what I did all day. I went to school, came back, Kathy and I hanging in our little trailer, played music all night long, got stoned, you know. And this is what we did. I used to Kathy worked at the Columbia Record Club, and I used to get in on the employee sale. So I would get $1 an album. And when you went into the record sale, you saw, and I'll get back to the synthesizer in a second, you saw, all these bins, airplane hangar filled with bins from the Columbia Record Club. And there was like rock, country, classical, jazz, something like that. The rock stuff and the country stuff, people are crowding around and fighting for the albums. The jazz stuff is like me and this other guy, So I went and I got like all these CTI albums, man, every freaking CTI album I bought. And I bought some other great albums. I bought Kind of Blue, and I bought some Miles stuff. And, but what happened was that, after that I came back to New York, and I wanted to get into it. So I started studying electronic music back here in New York. And I got an ARP Odyssey. And through that time, I met Joe Zawinul. And Joe and I were cool, and he showed me this keyboard with all of his cool shit on it, the phase shifter and everything. I saved up and scuffled, and my Kathy helped me get a Fender Rhodes. And then all of a sudden, I didn't get a gig forever because people were looking at me all the time going, you're out of your freaking mind, man. This shit's over, man. It's never going to happen, the synthesizer bullshit, man. Come on, man. You got to play the changes, man. You got to play this. You got to do that, I'm going, I'm just not hearing that, man. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing it because I love it, and I'll play it, but that's not what I'm going for, Because we used to go to the Vanguard anywhere all the time. That's what McCoy Tyner, man, and 10 times, Bill Evans, Yusef Lateef, and Pharoah Sanders, and all of these cats all over town. And so what happened was that then all of a sudden the Prophet 5 came out, and this was the first polyphonic synthesizer with a microprocessor base where if you program stuff, you can save it. Well, I had to get one, and my friend knew somebody in California that was really in tight with the company. And so they sent me, and so after a year of waiting, I got one. And my whole mind started changing in music. My whole mind started changing, and sounds and everything. And I would be sitting in my room for days coming up with stuff, man. And one day, a great keyboard player, man, Kenny Kirkland, who I knew Kenny, because, he was great. Because just remember, man, even though I was doing that, I love jazz, man. I listened to Bud Powell and, Monk and all this stuff. And I studied bebop with Mike Malillo out at the Water Gap with Phil Woods and everything. And so what happened was that Kenny said, "Hey, Jay, man, what's going on? Kenny, man, what's happening?" Because he was a great cat. And so he said, "I got this Japanese record date." I'm going, "Yeah, what's up?" And he goes to me, "It's electric, man. They want me to play synthesizers." And I'm going, "Okay, what's the matter with that?" "Nothing, man, except that, I could play them. I don't know how to use them. I don't know how to get a sound out of this thing." He goes, "I'm figuring that, man, if I give you $500, maybe you can bring some keyboards up to the studio and we could do this together." And I said, "Wow, Kenny, man, that's a good idea, man. I'll be so happy to do that for you, man, because I admired him so much as a player." And so we went up to the studio, man, and we're doing stuff, and Kenny's playing. This stuff sounds fucking awesome. It sounded like the Japanese guys sitting there. "Oh man, what you want, man?" I'm sorry for acting like that, but that's I'm not trying to be imitating people, but but that's what's happened. And so Kenny was like, "Okay," so Kenny calls me again. And all of a sudden I started seeing, man, there's a little vibe happening over here. I could be doing this and I could also be doing that. But when I got hooked in, when Michael Brecker really started telling all these producers about me and everything, and Michael told all these producers about, "How come you're not using Jason Miles? This guy knows the stuff, man," And I had been producing some artists in New York, on the level of me trying to build myself up as a producer. I had made my own solo album. And what happened was that, all of a sudden, I'm at a club one night, and Mike called me to come in and hang. And everybody was there. Mincer was there, Randy, Willie, all the cats were there, because they were all going to Europe in a couple of days for the festivals. And so I never pressed my time with anybody. So I went, I got a seat. And the next thing you know, man, I see Lenny White talking to Mike. And okay, so 2 seconds later, I'm looking at Lenny White standing right next to me. And he says to me, "Hey, man, Lenny White. Whoa, man. Okay. Hey, man, who are your favorite producers and everything? Who's your favorite producer?" And I go, "Oh, that's not even a question. Make Trevor Horn." And he goes, and Lenny lights up, man. He goes, "We're definitely going to work together," he said, I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You like Art and Noise?" "Come on, Art and Noise, man. Come on, it's amazing." And so the next thing I know, we hung out a couple of times, but then 6 months later, I got a call from Lenny saying, "Hey, man, Marcus is calling you tomorrow, man. We're going to start a new project tomorrow." And I told him he should really bring you in the studio and bring your stuff. So I said, "Okay." And that was the first day that I worked with Marcus, and we worked together for almost 10 years from there,
And how did the thing with Miles happen?
Well, because I had to put the producing thing on the side. There was the road that I could take. Do I want to go that way, or do I want to go that way? That way was on my own, still pursuing the production thing. That way was stopping that for a minute and showing and giving a commitment to doing the studio thing, And I just decided, I'm not stupid, man. This is going to be really good if I can hold my end of the bargain up, And I went in there, man, and, and then, okay, so then we were working on David Sanborn. We did Straight to the Heart, and we did a few other projects together, that he called me on and everything. And then one night I'm in home, and, the phone rang. It was a Friday night or something like that. Friday night, yeah. It was in the very beginning of February of 1986. And it was Marcus. Hey man, Marcus, it's Marcus. "Hey Marcus, what's happening, man?" He goes, "You busy tomorrow?" I'm going, "No, not really. We're just up here." "Hey man, Tommy LaPuma just signed Miles to Warner Brothers, and they're trying to make this record, man. Tommy called me up and wanted to know if I had songs." I said, "Yeah, well, what did you tell him?" "Well, I told him I had them." I said, "Okay, because but I have some ideas, man. You want to bring some keyboards down tomorrow to the loft, and let's see if we can work some stuff out." And I said, "Great, no problem, man." And so we went down there, and he started playing me this stuff and everything like that. And he said, "In order for us to do this 1-2, man, I need some big entrance, some huge entrance." So I had my emulator, and I went and I whipped out some orchestra hits, and that's the orchestra hit you hear on Tutu. and that's how it started off, and we were off to the races from that, man. He started creating the text. I was creating the textures, and he was like, filling in his changes and moving the arrangement around and everything. It required a lot of patience, but we got them done. And then 3 days later, he calls me up and tells me, man, I got the gig, man. I was like, whoa. He goes, yeah, we're going to go in the studio with Miles, man. And I was like, oh my God, because that's everything that I worked for my whole career. That's the moment I worked for. You have a pyramid, and here's the top of the pyramid. Miles is the top of the pyramid. I'm starting down there. All of a sudden, man, I'm up here at the top of the pyramid now, going to work with Miles. And if this screws up, where do I go from there? Where do I go from there? But it wasn't going to happen. And I went in there, and the stuff started sounding great. And, it was always a big joke because I tell the story about, that Marcus said to me, Miles is in the room over there, man. So, you're going to be here for 5 minutes, or you're going to be here for 5 weeks. And I said, well, I'm hoping it's going to be 5 weeks. And he goes, let's see what happens. So I walked in the studio. Miles was there messing around with his horn. And I said, hey, Miles, I don't mean to bother you, man, but I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jason Miles, and I'm doing all the synthesizer programming and synthesizer keyboard stuff, and I help Marcus and everything, and we create the sound, and then we put the parts together and everything. And he was like, I like your name. And I was like, wow, okay, thank you. And everything, yeah, cool, okay, I got to get back. Okay, Miles, cool, man, okay, thank you. I walk out, I'm going, I think I made it. So for 2 weeks, he's typical Miles, man. Typical Miles, of just not bad or anything to me or anything, by no means. But he had an affectionate pet name for me, that he would always call me. You know what that name? You know what it was?
What?
Whitey.
Whitey?
Yeah. Hey, Whitey. I was like, oh, well, at least he's calling me a name, man, not a hey, you. So what happened was that a couple of weeks later, we were listening to, maybe like about a week later, we were listening to this stuff, and man, it was really sounding good, Brett. It was really sounding good. I mean, Marcus put a tremendous amount of work into that project. I mean, I had known him to always be like a real worker and everything, but he went down to the minutia on this shit, man. We were fine tuning little tiny things, man, to make this like perfect. Because Tommy had put the kibosh on some of the music that was being cut with him and some of the other producers that they brought in. He put the kibosh on it, man, because that's not what he wanted to hear. But what Marcus was writing was what he wanted to hear, with the melodies and the freshness to it and everything, and not just a groove with Miles playing over just one change and everything. He wanted to hear Gil Evans and that kind of shit. And so we were doing it. Stuff was sounding great, man. And Miles was sitting there, man, and he looks over to me and he says to me, hey, Jason, can you do something where you go? And I'm saying to myself, yeah, I can do it. And all of a sudden I realized, wow, he called me Jason. And that's what when he flipped, man, he got a lot of confidence in me knowing what I knew how to do in there. And that was beautiful to me. That was like an amazing moment because Miles recognized me,
Did you remain friends after the project?
Oh, yeah, we were friends for 5.5 years. But I mean, serious friends. I mean, Miles, I introduced Kathy to Miles. He loved Kathy, man. Oh, my God. He was, Jason, you coming over today? Yeah. You bringing Kathy? Yeah. Oh, good. That's great, You want me to come over? You just want her to come over, And then we'd go over there and she'd run some errands for him and everything, typical Miles groove. And we were great friends, man. I did 3 albums. I did a mandala and we did music from Siesta. And we'd go over and hang at his house all the time. I got him a couple of synthesizers and a drum machine. And we'd be just like creating various things there that he was hearing and trying to do, And we'd eat and we'd watch the fights and, be like, midnight and they get a call from him or something like that, because he didn't even know what time of the day it was, he would like, sleep all day, sometimes sleep at night. I mean, he was just, on his own vibe, and, we spent a lot of time together, man. I got a lot of education from him. The kind of new project is a definite reflection off of, me talking about Bitches Brew to him and everything. And, him telling me, and that's how I got turned on to the Cellar Door album with Keith Jarrett on Rhodes, because Keith was playing unbelievable on that record, and I didn't realize it until I heard it finally in 2007 or 6 or 5, something like that, when the album came out. And I wanted to base a group off of that concept of a small electric ensemble that was grooving and playing some shit, but also had great melodies to play off of. Because I'll never forget that, when just, I said to Marcus, I said, what are we trying to do for real, what's, I know what I have to do, but, what is your objective on this? And he goes to me, my objective is to go and to make sure that Miles plays great melodies. And that's what people wanted from him. And that's what Marcus gave him. Because on a mandala, there's some wonderful melodies also. Wonderful songs on that album,
In addition to Miles, you've worked with many other people, and like Luther Vandross and Roberta Flack.
Yep.
And at the same time, you've worked with your own groups, different ideas you've had. Let's go over to the Weather Report tribute that you did. Let's listen to a little bit of it. Let's watch and listen to a little bit of Elegant People. yeah. Jason, why did you choose to celebrate Weather Report? And could you talk a little bit about Joe Zawinul?
Well, Weather Report was my favorite band, you know. And I'll tell you something. I love Joe Zawinul from Mercy, 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 and I followed him with Cannibal Adderley, and I loved his expression on the Rhodes, man. You know, I just loved how he played the Fender Rhodes, especially on that like Cannibal Adderley Country Preacher record, man. Oh my God, he was so soulful on it and everything. And when Weather Report, you know, first of all, I got hip to Zawinul for real with Bitches Brew. And when I heard Pharaoh's Dance and Spanish Key and everything like that, man, I was convinced, you know, this was one of the cats. Chick also, you know, Herbie too. You know, I was into all of them. But I saw Weather Report one night at a club in New Jersey. That was a totally bizarro night. And we ended up hanging at the end of the show with Joe and Wayne and Dalmoon Ramau. And it was a lot of fun. I'll just say it because it's 50 years later, man. You know, we were smoking weed. Joe was like, oh, this is good shit, man. You know, I don't know Joe, but that's Joe. And, you know, we started talking about synthesizers. And he, you know, I don't forget, he looked at my girlfriend and he said to her, hey, man, is this guy's your boyfriend? And Kathy goes, yeah, he's my boyfriend. He goes, I think he's actually pretty cool, man. He says, and I was like, whoa, Joe Zawinul, man. Oh my God. So I was on cloud nine for a while, but, you know, but I got to see like a lot of stuff what was happening. And this was at the time when Alphonso Johnson joined the band. So they were really starting to get its steam now, going into steam. And we hung out a bunch, man, because Dal Moom and I were doing some stuff together when he left the band. And we used to go see them play all the time because he was still friends with them, you know, and hung out with Wayne a bunch, with Native Dancer and everything. And, you know, got to see the, you know, the whole vibe, just how the band was building and all this other stuff. So years and years later, of course, you know, and he was really kind of weird, man, because I'll tell you something very interesting. You know, Miles was like, you know, we were going to see him. And what happened was that we were there and they were talking on it. Joe was talking to Miles and he was like, well, you know, I got this cat, man, he knows this synthesizer, man. He's just the baddest cat. And he goes, you know, this guy's Jason Miles. And that threw Joe for a loop because he just thought that I was like some guy just hanging around. You know what I mean? You know, yeah, I was doing some music, but he didn't realize the extent of what was happening because he's living in his own world. He's living in the world of Weather Report and Joe, you know. And so I went to go see him and he was acting really, really weird to me, you know, thinking that I was going to come in there and be some like big ego on him and everything like that. But I was never like that. You know what I mean? But I was never like that. He was a hero to me, man. He was a real hero to me. And we hung out a bunch and I, you know, told him I was going to make this record and everything like that, but it wasn't going to be like Weather Report. It was going to be like the songs and everything like that. And he was like, oh, that's cool, man. You know, but of course he hated the record, which I think is a very big compliment because Joe hated everything. And so if he hated it, that must have mean he listened to it. So, you know, but the reality was that, you know, we made this album and I was at a very strange time in my career and life and everything. I had been working with some labels at that point, big labels. And I was very disillusioned, man, with the way I was treated and the way things were going. And it was really depressing, both Kathy and myself. And then Jay Beckenstein wanted me to go and produce a couple of tunes for him on a solo album. He told me he wanted to do a version of Black Market. And I ended up doing it Jason Miles style and everything. It came out really freaking great. And Jay said to me, you got to make a whole album of Weather Report, man. You could do it. You could do it. And I was not thinking about doing it because I didn't know whether I wanted to do anything, man. I was so burnt out on, you know, what's going on in this business, being at the top, being at the bottom, reinventing my career as a producer. I had to reinvent myself all over again in 1994, you know, in 95. Because just because I was a great synth guy in the studio, it doesn't mean that people wanted to trust me with the production or the musicality or anything. So I had to really prove myself all these years. And what happened was that, you know, I said, well, if I'm going to do this record, I'm going to go full steam ahead. And so every label turned me down. But this guy got me a deal with Telarc. And Telarc calls me up and says to me, so wait a second, man, before we get into this, you could actually get Marcus Miller, Steve Gadd, Mike Brecker, Randy Brecker, John Schofield, and David Sanborn on this album? Really? I go, yeah. Why? Because this just seems like impossible to do. And I'm going, maybe it's impossible for somebody else, but I can pull it off. As a matter of fact, I'll get some more people. I was thinking about like Vinnie Colaiuta and maybe John Patitucci playing on something. Everything. You got to be careful. I said, no, well, let's do it. They gave me the deal. And I'll never forget sitting in the office when I finished the project and sitting there with Telarc going, man, you freaking pulled this shit off, didn't you, man? You know? Yeah, we pulled it off, you know? And got to be #1 in Japan. We did some gigs. But when I wanted to start gigging, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started getting producing gigs as a producer. And the business wasn't in the shitter back then, you know? So I was like, you know, embracing that because let's face it, we were doing the job in the studio that every musician wanted to do. Nobody wanted to go out and play in a band. They wanted to be working in the studio on making the albums. And that's what we got to do. And so, you know, I kept on accepting it. I got the Yvonne Lynn's project going and took her over with Love and did a movie and, you know, some other stuff. And, you know, this is what kind of happened. And it wasn't until like a couple of years after I had done initial gig with Weather Report gigs that I said, you know, I want to start playing out live more, man. I got to bring these projects to fruition. And that's been hard, you know, but we've also played some amazing places. But I'll tell you this, man, the last time I saw Joe Zawinul and all the stuff that we came through, Kathy and I knew him for 30-something years. And he was a jazz at Lincoln Center, man, with the Zawinul Syndicate. And after the show, we went into the dressing room, the green room, and all these people were standing there and everything. And Joe sees me across the room, and he gives us this big smile. He had a kind of a really wry smile that was really kind of cool, you know. And I went over, and he goes, "Oh, my man, Jason Miles, man, what's happening?" And he looks at Kathy. He goes, "Oh my God, you're still so beautiful." He looks at her, you know. And then he starts telling us about Maxine and that she was just doing terrible and she was not going to make it and everything. And I felt so bad and everything like that. And he all of a sudden he stops and he looks around the room and he goes, "Hey, man, I got to say something." "What?" You see this guy next to me, man? This guy's Jason Miles, man. He's a badass keyboard player, man. Badass, man. You know, and you know what, man? He respects the generations of musicians that came before him, man. Yes, he does, man, you know? And I was like shocked. And Kathy said to me that in a strange way, he was saying goodbye to me, you know? Because a few months later, man, he was gone, you know?
Yeah, I know. Well, let's look at another one of your projects. We'll talk about it in a second. This is Global Noise.
Global Noise, yeah.
Fun when I party hard, eh? Fun is on my mind. Fun puts a smile on your face to leave that mama behind.
Jason, while the music is in the background here, what is Global Noise? Talk to me about this project.
Global Noise is a project that I started in 2007, and it was supposed to bring all elements of world music together in funk and improvisation and groove and songs and everything, using cutting-edge musicians to get them to come into the concept of what I was trying to do. And, I started it with DJ Logic, and then, we started morphing it. At the beginning, I had Falu with us, and she still is a part of the whole thing. But this project was Sly reimagined. I wanted to do an album of Sly reimagined and do it the way that I saw Sly. And for 2012 that was, or 11 was. And, we went and we created a new vibe and paradigm. We played at places, man, we were knocking people's socks off everywhere because it was so fresh and different. And I had great musicians with us on the road, amazing musicians on the road with us. And the album, was there. But, it's hard when you're not with a label that's really giving you the kind of support that you really need for a project like that, So, so I made 3 albums, and now I have a 4th one in the can that one of these days I'm going to release. That's really good. It's called the Unity Funk Project, and it's dedicated to Bernie Worrell because Bernie was a part of the project originally. Bernie was, my funk man. I met Bernie a long time ago, and he was that cat that I went to who taught me a lot about playing this shit, man. A lot.
Jason, we lost your picture.
Oh, really? Okay.
I see no video from Jason Miles. There you are. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Only a face a mother could love, right?
Well, I don't know about that. But seriously, talk to me about your new recording and what you're going to be doing in the next couple of months.
Well, the next couple of months are like, here we are. What are we doing? You know what I mean? I was very, very fortunate, man, because look, I made this kind of new project that was all based off of the Miles and the Cellar Door. I did that first album, and it got global acclaim everywhere, man. Great reviews. Number 2 album of the year, number 4 album of the year. I mean, and I had to continue on the vibe and everything, but I needed to go in a little bit different of a direction, and I wanted it more solid around a group of people. And so, I was writing this new music because I went to Europe. My agent, Stephanie Callenberg, who's Reggie Washington's wife, and Reggie's amazing. I toured around Europe with Reggie and Gene Lake and Jay Rodriguez and Theo Croker, and the gigs went really fantastic. They went great and legendary stuff. I got a 4-star review from the Financial Times of London. I mean, let's get real, man. That's hard to get, and that's why I say it, because it's one of those rare moments when something lines up right. And what happened was that Stephanie was telling me, man, look, if we want to get this together, we have to start this project from scratch together. And we have got to go and try to make something happen with it. I said, all right, I'm willing to try that, man, because I knew that she had a commitment to it. And so what happened was that I started writing music. And then they told me that they were coming to New York because Reggie was going to visit his family back there. So we were coming to New York over Christmas of 2018. And I was like, wow. So I booked us a gig at New Blue. And I went in there, man, and I brought our great sound guy, Aaron Spencer, and Aaron recorded the whole show, and I brought it home, and I said, oh, there's definitely something here. And that's when I said to myself, you know what? I can't release a whole live album. I have to just release songs, man. They got to hear new stuff. So I started writing new music. And then the fateful night happened where, I was home, and I saw that Herbie Hancock was playing at the Bergen Pack. And I called up James Genus and Vinnie Colaiuta, and I said, hey, man, come on, can you guys hook us up? And they called back, yeah, we got you hooked up, man. Kathy and I drove down there, and I saw a show of Herbie's that sent my brain to the moon, man. He was off the freaking charts playing. When he was playing in 4th gear, I turned around to Kathy, go, where can he go? And next thing you know, man, he puts it right into 5th gear, man. And it was unbelievable. It really was. And it was so inspiring because I hadn't been really inspired by people in a long time. To really see and try to make me excited, really excited, like I did with Weather Report and I did with all those other projects. And so after the show, I went back, like I said, hey, and we saw Herbie and was talking to Herbie and everything. And he was really so cool, man. I gave him a couple of CDs, because he came up to me and said to me, hey, man, what have you been up to, man? I'm wondering what's happening with you. Because we had done some work together before. And so you know, and we've seen each other over the years. We've gone out to dinner together and everything, you know. And so he said, what's coming? I go, hey, I wanted to give you these, man. I gave him Sly Reimagined, and I gave him Kind of New. And I go, okay, man, this is cool. He goes, what's up? And I go, well, I'm doing this new project now, man. And he goes, well, you know, just remember, man, you know, you got to go find that music, man. You got to dig down and get it, man. You know, don't be scared to get it, you know. And I said, no, you know, Herbie, man, you're an incredible example to all of us, man. You know, you're how old you are now. I'm not going to even say that. He goes, don't count numbers, man. You know. And I was like, I got you, you know. And I left that night, and I went back and I listened to the music that I had, and I threw it all away. I threw the songs that I was writing on that were really getting pretty close. I threw them all away. And I said, this isn't good enough, man. I have got to reach down and find some stuff here. And I spent the next like 10 days in the studio, man, my studio, just writing new stuff and putting it together. And I came up with these songs for the album that is now called Black Magic. And I came about saying, you know, my career has been a lot of black magic. You know what I mean? Synthesizers, this, that. So I call the record Black Magic because, you know, we need some spells, man. There's nothing wrong with a spell. And you can't have black magic because voodoo doesn't go across water. At least that's what a Haitian told me one day. So, you know, so I made this album and put it out, and Rope-A-Dope decided to do it. And people are like, just give me incredible reviews. These are the best reviews I've gotten. I've gotten good reviews. I'm always proud of what's been out there because of how much work we've put into it. But this album was getting reviews over the top. Like, you know, this is amazing. All Music Guy gave me an incredible review and a feature, and then Relics covered me on this one, and I just got in Jazz in Europe in an article because people were feeling what I was doing with this thing. And just when we were getting ready to rock, here's what happened. Here we are.
Yeah,
so what I'm going to
certainly has happened to a lot of us. But I had the chance to hear the album last year, and strongly suggest that you check it out, jasonmilesmusic.com. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, Jason. I noticed in the weather report thing you had Jeff Coffin up with you. Jeff is our guest tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Can you say something about Jeff?
You know, bad mofo. What are you going to say? You know, Jeff is a bad mofo, man. He's a perfect. When he got the gig at the Dave Matthews Band, through the tragedy that got him the gig, he was the perfect guy to step in there, man. He's so versatile, you know. And he brings it, man. We did a couple of weather report gigs. We did the Clearwater Jazz Holiday in front of 15,000 people there, man. It was awesome. Carter came down and did it also because it made me really believe and feel like these people believe in what I'm doing. And they know I'm honest, and they know that I care about them, and that it's not some, you know, it's not some Trump ego trip with me. Did I tell you about me, by the way? Let me tell you something else about me. You know, I mean, I go and I respect those people out there because I know how hard it is for them to get to where they got to. So I want to treat everybody great. And Jeff played with Global Noise also at the Berks Jazz Festival. He played, and he's like, he's just an inspiring player, man. I mean, you know, he did one thing at the Berks Jazz Festival that was amazing when he just went on the horn. He went to the side of the stage right in front of Bernie Worrell and Michelle and Degiacello. And he was like jamming with them, man, right as it was happening. And at that point, I just met him, and I said, this cat's dead serious. Besides the fact, good people. Let's get into that. That's the most important thing. Good people.
Yeah, Jeff is a solid citizen, no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Well, we have burned through an hour here. I want to thank Jason Miles for joining us and giving us his fantastic stories and his energy and his music. Jason Miles Music, to check out his stuff. Also, he has a YouTube channel. And as we've said...
stuff. Spotify, get me some streams, man. Come on. All my stuff is on Spotify. Black Magic's doing okay on there and everything. You know, it doesn't cost you anything to listen to this music. So stream it and help us all over here, man, because we need the help. Stream it and do it. Bandcamp, it's on Bandcamp also. You know, we need your help out there now, man. If the audience isn't going to give it to us, man, then I'm going to go and freaking start Uber driving or something, you know?
Well, don't do that. That's a little dangerous. Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Everybody in the Jazz Video Guy world. Tomorrow, Jeff Coffin. And please stay safe and stay healthy.